So you should look out for the good aspects. Make sure it's okay before it gets into your system, so that it doesn't cause harm. So before we continue, we'd like to state that this program is being sponsored by B Musa Phones, which can be located in some parts of Kumasi. You can go to Edum. That's one of the main points where you can get B Musa Phones, and also Makan food, natural food, which is also into natural foods, our brown rice, our granite paste, tamarind, and all those stuff. You can get them at Makan Food, which is also located on the Agric and Zima Road. So let's continue. We know what food is now. Mr. Amin, can you please just go on something few on hygiene? Let's just discuss something small on hygiene. What is hygiene?
Okay, so basically with hygiene, we are talking about all those measures or conditions that we do to prevent or protect ourselves from contamination or getting infected with microorganisms. So hygiene in general is anything that we do to prevent coming into contact with harmful microorganisms. I must say that when we say organisms, we have them basically into two. That is those that are harmless and those that are harmful. Naturally, God gave us some of these organisms to protect us. So when you look at the fluid that flows around our eyes, it is having what we call normal flora. That is, it contains some fluids with microorganisms. When you look through our ears, we have some substances which is containing microorganisms. Our nostrils, even our saliva is containing some microorganisms. And even the genital parts, both males and females, we do have microorganisms. That's the normal flora. When you say normal flora, that is any fluid or any substance that contains harmless but protective organisms in the various parts of the body. However, we do have other organisms which are harmful the moment the body comes into contact with it. But I must also add that sometimes some bacteria which are even harmless in some parts of the body, for example, the one we have, let's say, on our eyes, they may be harmless once they are found in the eyes. But when they come into contact with the mouth, it's going to be harmful. However, we do have other microorganisms which generally they are always harmful. So hygiene basically is about protecting the body from coming into contact with harmful bacteria. So be it personal, be it food or environmental, it's about protecting ourselves from these harmful organisms.
Okay. So if you are listening, it's Mamphec and we have Mr. Amin with us discussing food hygiene. So Mr. Amin was saying hygiene, it's practices put in place to see to it that we don't get harmed, or our bodies or our system doesn't get harmed, sorry. So be it environmental, be it food, be it personal, whatever you do in order to prevent illness or diseases means you are practicing hygiene. So we know what food is and we know what hygiene is. Let's try and link it. What is food hygiene?
So once we know the two concepts, we should have an idea of what food hygiene should be. So all those practices or conditions that we put in place to make sure right from the production stage of our food till consumption, it doesn't get contaminated or come into contact with harmful bacteria. So basically the concept is about that. From, production. Let's say if you go to the slaughterhouse or the abattoir, they deal with meat production. So right from the slaughtering stage to the handling, that is how to cut the pieces into various parts and all that, through storage, through transportation from the abattoir to the various marketing centers, to our various markets spread across the country. When it comes to the market, individuals go there to buy. So once they go there to buy, how these individuals handle the food in their home. That is, process it by cooking and all that, whether frying, steaming, or heat, boiling, etc. All these processes that they undergo is supposed to be free from contamination. When I say contamination, free from any microorganisms which are harmful. So right from the slaughtering till we consume that food, anything that we do to prevent the contamination of bacteria is what we consider as food hygiene.
So look, from what you are just saying, I had a chance to go to one abattoir back in school, and from what they told us, the meat that is even sold on the market needs to have a stamp. Right from they give it stamps to indicate that yes, it's from the abattoir. But do people really check those things?
Yes, ideally that's supposed to be the practice, and that's the essence of these inspectors. I mean, government have trained people to do that and do that inspection, and in fact every food that comes to the market should be approved. It should be approved. Without approval, it cannot be sold. But the big problem is that in Ghana we don't have some of these laws being enforced. Everybody says somewhere, slaughters a cow or a sheep and starts selling. But we must say that all these things are unlawful. Ideally, if you want to celebrate, let's say, your birthday, and you have a cow to slaughter, the law says that take it to the abattoir. That is a licensed authority to do the slaughtering, and make sure that all the safe practices are adhered to. Once they do that, they are also going to do a test to make sure that the microbial content of that food is safe for consumption. And you and I do not have that expertise to test and approve that the microbial content is safe. Perhaps the cattle that you bought is suffering from a disease which is zoonotic, that is, can be transferred from animals to humans. You do not know. All you know is that a beautiful cow is standing and it has been slaughtered. You think it's wholesome. We have these experts who are able to tell us that, look, this food is hygiene or wholesome for consumption. So it is a great advice that, be it Eid celebration, you slaughter your cow, the best thing is that as a Muslim community we should even get a center where we do the slaughtering, and we have these experts coming in to do what? To approve it for us. Other than that, we end up contaminating ourselves. And there are some microorganisms, when they come into contact into the body, they may take about 10 years before they manifest into disease. So we may not know. We may think that we may be consuming hygienic foods. Meanwhile, we may not. So what I'm saying is that these abattoirs, for example, Mayanka, they are supposed to approve all our slaughtered meats. And now, when they do that, it undergoes another process which we call singeing. That is, we are supposed to keep this meat in a very cold condition for at least for 24 hours before it is being distributed to the market. Because these meats contain lots of blood or bodily fluids. And these bodily fluids are, a nice medium for bacteria to thrive. So what we do is that with the singeing process, we keep the meat in a very cold temperature, under a very cold temperature, so that under that temperature, most bacteria are likely not to survive under that temperature. So once you slaughter the cow or the sheep, it undergoes singeing for that 24 hours. You are most likely to have a wholesome meat. So we should make sure that all these things, we go through the process until we come back. The other worrying aspect in Ghana now is the process by which we even, process the cow meat or the sheep meat, especially the sheep. We use ties, old ties from, used cars and all that, to be doing the burning. and you could see the environmental effect and all that, and the toxic that is being produced from the burning of that tie, and all these things, it goes into the meat. So you could see that basically we are not thinking about safety here at all. But sometimes you find inspectors coming around, and we even question the credibility of the work that they even do. They don't come with any special equipment. They only come and do eyeball assessment of the meat. They cut some part, well, it's ready, they just go away and approve it. But I think that the testing process itself is questionable, and there's more room for improvement in that area as well.
So thank you very much. It's here for Mamphec ana yeguswa your name your host to say Ibrahim Andongo. Your name is Amin, and I discuss food hygiene. Ya share food mu kakra ne hygiene nti ye ka food hygiene ye nhyehyɛ ye da ho de ma aduane ho siesie se ne be ya ekɔ ye honam a emma anase enha ya adwen ye be say sisu biem say program yi sponsored by B Musa Phones and Can Food Industry no so agrikokode B Musa Phones so phones papa pa obetimi enye omo wa edum omo main yi ba kon so wa edum ye beto aso free baby I see you know say food hygiene. We know what food hygiene is. Then let's look at the food, the storage houses. What should be the condition of our storage houses before, like how do we store our foods? How should our storage houses be? The requirements, what should be necessary, or what are the things that we really need to have before we can consider a place for storing our foods?
I think first and foremost, we must understand that any company or individual who wants to deal with the processing of food and perhaps the marketing and sale of food products should undergo some environmental inspection and get the necessary license to do that. Number one, if it's about food, be it water, or let's say you want to open a restaurant, Environmental Protection Agency have to come in to inspect the environment to make sure that, well, it is very safe. The food that we are going to produce and sell over there is safe. Sometimes you do find storage houses close to refuse dumps, sometimes close to certain industries which produces gaseous substances which are even not healthy, wholesome for the food. So all these things have to come into play. That is, you should have a license. Once you register to do that, they will come and do the inspection. Once they approve your environment to be safe, no problem. Now, you proceed to take your product to Ghana Standards Authority to also approve the safety or the efficacy of the food that you are going to store over there. So ideally, with the storage itself, it largely depends on the kind of food you are going to store in the storehouse. So if it is about a food which is supposed to be served chilled, it means that your deep freezers should also be working, and it shouldn't be compromised at all. They are going to check your plant in case there's power cut and all that, because the food is supposed to be served chilled. So the storage should have that facility. Other than that, they are going to disapprove that. If it's a food which is supposed to be served hot, then they expect your boilers and all that to also be, working properly. So once they do that and they approve your center to be a good facility to keep our food safe, then they can approve it for, as a center. Other than that, but in Ghana, I wonder how the laws are being enforced.
So we are still continuing with where we ended. We were discussing our storage houses, and from what Mr. Amin is saying, based on the type of product you want to bring on board, you have certain requirements. Let's say if you are producing items, let's say meat, or let me say meat and fish and those likes, the requirement is fridge. It should be a necessary requirement. And maybe if you are selling foods that are supposed to be held, your boilers and all those things, that should help reduce the chances of microorganisms infesting the food to be reduced. So that was on our storehouses. Should anyone be okay to handle our foods?
Yes, with food. If it is an individual food, then it means that you have your individual right to handle your own food. But if it's about the public, it comes with certain regulations. All food handlers, public food handlers, should have some certification or should have undergone some medical screening to rule out certain conditions which are most likely to be transferred onto the food for others to also get infected. So usually in our various sub-metros, they do go around to do this inspection. The only problem is that we are faced with the challenge of coverage. Sometimes because of logistics, they are only able to reach out to some few vendors. For the food vendors, everybody is supposed to be screened. Other than that, you are not supposed to handle public food. You are not supposed to handle public food. I have talked about the environment. Now, the biggest challenge we are facing with our food vendors is the environmental issue. So before these inspectors come even to screen you, it means that you might have received a certification from them that, look, this your environment is safe for food. And that's why the sub-metros, one of their major responsibilities is to make sure that even if it is a kiosk, they have to give you a permit to go and operate it. So the moment you mention it's for food, they have to make sure they check the surrounding, how safe it is. Because if someone is having an industry burning something there, if someone is also dealing with, let's say, processing of waste products, or we have a refuse dump, I mean, and all that, if we have a farmland close to that area, all these things should be considered, and they are not even supposed to in the first place approve the site for you. Once they approve the site for you, then they go on to do the screening for you, the individual who is going to handle the food. With that one, the problem I have now is that they only screen the owners of the food. I mean, the restaurant or something, one person. However, that person may be having about 15 to 20 workers. And indeed, those 20 workers are the very people who handle the food itself.
Before it even gets to the
serving, cooking, everything. They do the handling. And the owner just sits down somewhere in the house and takes his or her money. However, when we are going to do the screening, we do the screening for only one person, or let's say the owner. That's all. Which is something which is worrisome, because these people do not come into contact with the food. So once we do the screening for them, and some of the screenings that we can do, we have to rule out cholera, which is one of the major public health concerns when it comes to food hygiene, cholera. So they are supposed to be tested and vaccinated. Not just tested, but you should be vaccinated as well. We also have to rule out typhoid fever. Typhoid fever too, very contagious once you are a food handler. So they have to check all these conditions, and where there is the need to vaccinate, they do the vaccination. And that doesn't end the whole process. Once they give you the go-ahead, approved, you medically fit to handle our food, there should be occasional visits to these handlers so that they also come in and check to make sure that you are adhering to the safe practices. So it is not as if you can just get up one day and just be selling. But unfortunately, in our Ghanaian system, we have about 90 to 95% of our sellers or food handlers not being under any check at all.
Especially those who do the hawking.
The hawkers and all that. The only thing we do best is to stop them and take their tickets. Give them tickets. That's the only thing we do best. Other than that, we have hundreds, thousands of hawkers, and they are not being screened. And that's the biggest challenge.
And quite apart from that, that is even for the screening and other things. What are some of the personal, like they are on the aspect of personal hygiene, some of the things that these are vendors are supposed to do? You go to someone to buy food and you realize that the person is just using the bare hand to fetch. Meanwhile, the person's fingernails or some is just too grown.
Yes,
their
I
hairs
think
are left
yes,
open
and all that. I think this is something we have talked about. Anything that we do to prevent the food from contamination. So right from, that's why I said there should be occasional visits to these vendors. When they come in, they are supposed to inspect the surrounding. How is this person adhering to infection prevention control measures? For example, you say you said you are selling food, but you have your hair left opened. You know, one of the places in the body that is having lots of microorganisms is the hair. So ideally it's supposed to be covered. And that's why in all restaurants which really adhere to safety practices, they do have that apron. So you should have a protective clothing to cover the hair, and even the body itself.
Even, is it necessary? The nose mask?
The nose, everything. Once you are handling food, you are supposed to cover all those places. So they do that, and it is very important to prevent the spread of infection. Ideally, if you are a food handler, you are not supposed to come into direct contact with the food. That is the safe practice. An individual who is taking the food can wash the hand clean and take the food.
But for someone,
yes, for the individual, even that one, we even say that the person should try as much as possible to use the items which are clean to eat rather than using the bare hand. So if you are a public food handler, for you under no circumstance should you come into direct contact with, ready to eat food. That's what I term it, ready to eat. For example, donut which is ready to be eaten, you are not supposed to touch it. So if you are fetching this food for a customer, it's supposed to be done with something other than the bare hand.
With a rubber.
At least with it's supposed to be with the right cutlery. If it's a fork or something, because we are also preaching against the use of these polythene bags and all that, because of its harmful effects and all that. So ideally we should encourage them to be using the right tools for the yes. And one thing is that sometimes you see them taking the monies that they are receiving from customers, that same hand is being used to pick the food items, and that's even more dangerous.
Because it has passed through a lot of hands.
Yes.
Maybe from a public toilet
to a whole lot. And so when they come around, they should be checking the person's practices and be checking the bowls. When you even come outside, what they do in advanced countries, when they come with a full team. So they have their lab men. So the bowls that you have been using for, let's say, just a month, they will come, they'll pick a swap from the bowls or the spoons or the bowls you are even using to cook, and the sinks that you are using. They will pick swaps and perhaps take it to the lab. If it's going to take about a week or two, the report will come. The moment they see highly contaminated organisms like streptococcus and the staphylococcus and the rest, they are going to close your restaurant. So that's why they give them guidelines to adhere to. So if you adhere to those guidelines, you will not have the contamination at all. So it's not about coming to pick, give them, the tickets and take your money or come to check whether they are vaccinated or not. It's about doing some of these checks as well. You see somebody selling a watch and the person has used the bowls for over 6 months, same bowl. Hundreds of customers use the same spoon and all that. We are supposed to go around to check, take sample and see how safe these spoons are, how safe these bowls are, and all that. And sometimes too, they do come to take some blood samples of these food handlers.
Hepatitis B and the like.
And all that. But then it is just one-stop shop. They just do it once. When we take a condition like typhoid fever, it's not as if I'm negative today, I have received lifelong immunity to typhoid fever. You understand? So in every 6 months, once I'm still doing the business, I'm supposed to undergo testing again. And not to leave me for a very long, for the rest of my life, because I have once tested negative. And all these are issues for concern, which I think needs to be addressed.
So, to our listeners, and then they can own quabontin and koto eduane because a commode warranty ukodua, near my be where was all share a war, nipa or ton eduane hono. Ne ono so na hu siesie ne person say bia ne nsefu wajani mi niema basabasa sa ne wenyi na wose ye den ye hwe ansa na ye den ya to sa nuane no. So Mr. we've looked at the person selling the food itself. We've talked about the environmental health, the environment of the person. So now what are we supposed to do as health, like even if you look at those in charge of, sometimes I don't know whether they are doing their work or they are not doing it. They go out there to do the inspection and all those stuff. But I don't know. It's still something that happens. The number of people who go out there, I don't know whether they are few, because we have a lot of people selling food out there. But the team that goes out to do these inspections, they are very few. I think that's one reason why it keeps increasing. So what are we as a government, or what are we as a nation supposed to do to reduce these cases of?
All right. I think one thing we have to understand is that the food, we are what we eat. Yeah. And the numerous conditions or medical problems that we do have in our various hospitals is as a result of most likely to be the food that we eat. And that's why, as a nation, we should be conscious about how we handle our food and how we consume our food and all that. Now, the question you are asking, I think it borders so much on enforcement of the law. Yeah. Enforcement of the law. Right now, these agencies are supposed to be doing their work. And once they do the public will be safe. However, I don't know whether it's as a result of lack of resources or commitment from the government, but I don't know where the problem is coming from. But the point is that what we are seeing from the ground is somebody is not doing its work. Why am I saying this? Now, somebody is having a corner shop, handling food, no registration, no license, no vaccination, and all that. Meanwhile, this person is also engaged in some practices which are not safe. Nobody is talking about it. Somebody comes there to issue ticket to this person and take money away. Nothing, nobody is talking about this. When you take those who have even gone a little bit ahead, they go further and even advertise on our radios. They advertise on our radios. Perhaps the person has been able to package his product very well. So he will go to the radio station and also advertise. Now the point is, who is there at the radio station to be checking to make sure that this food has been approved before they even market it? But you know, these people, these media people are also trying to make money. So sometimes they turn blind eye to some of these things. They don't even ask because they are interested in their money. So they come, they just be promoting. So somebody with an unapproved food product can have a jingle on radio morning, afternoon, evening. And they beat this drum into the ears of Ghanaians. So Ghanaians buy into this food and they consume it. And we are concerned about how safe we are. Somebody is supposed to be doing its work. Now you have packaged your food. What is the label or the labeling? The labeling itself is having some laws attached to it. We have an act which is specifying how somebody is supposed to label a food product. At least you are supposed to tell us what is in the package, what product it is. The name of the product should be there. Who has approved it to be wholesome? That institution should also have its name there. The quantity should be there. The size of that food product should be there. When was it prepared? And when is it going to expire? All these things should be there. The ingredients, because there are some people, they are allergic to some ingredients or some substances. So you cannot leave it bare or undisclosed. You have to let them know what you use to prepare that food, so that somebody who, let's say we Muslims, we don't take ham or pork products, so they have a way of labeling. So you have to let us know if it has a substance like that in the food. So all these things are information to make the consumer take informed decisions whether to take the food or not. But in Ghana, who is doing that? The outburst of printing presses and all that, you just pick your product, you go. Once they are able to get a colorful label for you, you put it on the product, you go out there, be selling it. I remember a colleague of mine did a study in the streets of Accra. It was on this sobolo. They call it hibiscus tea. So he took this research upon himself to go out there to look out for the microbial content of this sobolo, those that are already in the market and is being sold to consumers. You know, the problem with this sobolo business when it started was people were even using used bottles. So the process of preparing the sobolo could be wholesome. However, the bottle that you even used in packaging could be a problem and can contaminate the food. So the research proved that most of the sobolo that we are selling in Accra Central, that was the study site, majority of them were contaminated. And that was a sort of, he took samples of those. He went out there, bought some of them from different sellers. Different sellers. They brought those samples to the lab, and microscopically they understudied them to see if they were having, they call it microbial load, to see at least there will be some microbes, but then the level should determine whether the food is wholesome or not. So they did that, and the conclusion of the study was that most of them were contaminated. So you see, sometimes somebody will say, I don't want to mention any product, but I must say that most of the products that are being advertised on our radio and TV stations, they don't have the certification. You understand? So the law enforcing agencies or the respective agencies are supposed to do their work. The Food and Drug, they call it Ghana Standard Boards Authority. Ghana Standards Authority, FDA. They are supposed to issue, if you want to sell, let's say, sobolo, let's say your, personal brand. If you want to sell sobolo, you have to take it to them. They take it to their lab and see how wholesome that sobolo would be to the public. And once they approve it, you come, you register your business, then off you go. The only thing is for these inspectors to also come and check the environment that you are going to prepare these things and all that. But they are not doing their work.
Well, currently the KMA has also created another unit which is in charge just for food.
Yes.
Which has been in existence not up to like 6 months, but they've started working for now. they are doing a wonderful job going to the various community, the various places to look out for these food. And
yes.
quite at times they come in with seized items, expired goods, foods exposed to sunlight and all those things, these drinks that are exposed to sunlight and a whole lot. So if the assembly is doing such a thing, other bodies can also come in to support the assembly to see to the continuous work of this unit. So
and as you are saying, even the KMA, a whole metropolitan assembly, they are supposed to be the superintendent of some of these things. In fact, and also even direct respective agencies to also do their work. So as you are saying, I also commend the KMA. I think they've started this not just recent, but it's been a while. That's why I think they decentralized this thing to the sub-metros to also be doing the checking, the screening and all that for the vendors. But the only problem is, as I said earlier, the coverage. How far are they able to cover? You know, Ghana, majority of our people are into trade. They are into trade, and it's about this buying and selling. And I can confidently say that most of them are even food, buying and selling food. So a lot of people are into this business. So we have to get people who can really go out there and reach out to at least, if not all, about 90 to 95% of our food handlers, so that we can do, the best checks on, put the best checks on them.
Since they've even created such a unit, I think more people should be pushed into the sector so that at least they can be able to cover most of the parts in, especially in Kumasi here. And I know for some of the other regions too, they are also doing something to also help to reduce some of these things.
And I was even thinking that KMA should rather be attacking rather than being defensive. What I mean by attacking is that you don't sit down or you don't chase the person to, come and do a screening. You have to let them know that once you wait and we come to meet you without screening, we are going to put these sanctions on you. And we should highlight this on our radio stations so that once the public is aware that there are some damages if you forgo some of these important exercises, they will rush to your offices because now you don't have the personnel. I wish they could absorb more national service personnel who will really come and support this work. But then once you don't have, you don't take that position to always be chasing them. Put measures, stringent measures, so that they will rather chase you to do the test and all that.
Okay, this year with the national service, the unit was able to get over almost 100 for education.
Okay.
They are the sanitation crusaders.
Oh,
that's
okay.
how because they go out there to the public to educate them on some. So this year the KMA was able to utilize some of the national
personnel
to go out there to educate them and also sanction them because the workers are few. So with the national service personnel around, they can go out there, educate them. So the education was for like 2 months to educate them on some of these things. Then after the 2 months, they started the sanctioning, where if they come and meet you with, if they come and meet that your surrounding is not clean or other, they will just sanction you or just take a coverage. So on social media, we had some of the corporates on people's statuses and all these things. So with such an initiative, if it is pushed or if people are pushed into that sector, it can also help reduce. So this year, KMA is doing quite well with such some of these problems.
Okay, talking about food, I think one area which we also have to give much attention is our water.
Yes, water producing companies.
Our water producing companies. Quite recently, I don't want to mention any name, but one of the top class producers, we had a different company which was even not registered, producing the same product with the same labeling and all that.
Yes.
And it was being sold into the market. So, you know, food is as important as water, and water likewise. So if we want to really avoid some of these contaminations, we have to also give the attention to how we are going to handle our food and all that. Now, the biggest challenge is in Ghana, the Ghana Water Company is not able to do what? Connect every household. Yeah. So we are all turning into, well diggers. So every house is having a well. Yeah. And you see, one funny thing is that when those who are expert in digging the well, when they come, they ask, which part of your land is on the high hill and which is on the low side. So they want to know the point which is high, so that they'll take the lowest point and do the drilling. You understand? When they do the drilling, they'll get the water easily. However, your next neighbor, so when they dig the well here, let's say to the left side of the house, to the right side we have to dig the septic tank. Yes. The septic tank, because they cannot be at the same area. Meanwhile, the next neighbor's septic tank is close to somebody's well.
Serious.
So you could see that, and I don't know, there is no law which is also enforcing that if you dig a well, you have to
make sure it's
you take it to.
Far away from.
We have mentioned it, lip service, that you have to take it to, let's say, KNUST for screening to make sure that the water is wholesome. But how many Ghanaians would dig a well and take it to KNUST for screen? Somebody has to come in to prosecute people, ask for their approval. The water that they are using in their house, where is the approval that this water is wholesome? If we don't do that and we think it's about people's choices, it's their health, they can choose to do what? No, when they get sick, there will be a burden on our national health budget. So we have to be proactive in that manner. Other than that, we are going to receive a lot. You know, Ghana, our biggest challenge is infectious diseases, contagious, communicable diseases. And most of these things are coming from some of these things. So it is hard time we start approaching the whole problem from this angle.
And even looking at that, even in our households, there are certain things we have to look out for before we even do our cooking, because we buy the item raw in the market. The process the person even has to put the food through before she cooks, because probably it's those selling outside that we keep talking about. But even in our household level, people go out there to buy. You buy meats, and the things that you need to do to make sure that the meat doesn't cause any harm to your body, because you don't just go out there, buy the meat exposed to a whole lot of microbes, then you just come, you don't wash without, you just wash with water, then just start cooking. Maybe the temperature at which you are even cooking the meat is not that strong enough to even kill the microbes. So there are certain things that we can do to at least reduce it, so that when it gets exposed to the heat, it can also be able to remove it. What are some of the things that we need to do as married women, as sisters and relatives? Because women do the cooking mostly, so we need to also know what we are supposed to do when we get the items from we get the raw items from the market, because the one handling the food, you don't also know the health of the person. You just go there, you just go out there and bought the item. So what are we as ladies in our household supposed to also do to make sure that the food we cook for our families is also wholesome?
I think the first thing we have to be doing is to, be having proper hand washing, which is very important. Not just people who handle our kitchen, but every member of the household. The moment you return from outside, the first thing you have to do is to wash your hands. So I think once we want to do preparation of food for our family, the first thing is to do a proper hand washing. And number two, to also do a proper washing of the items that we bought, including the banche, the cassavas that we bought, at least to reduce the risk of getting contamination. At least you have to wash it, let's say, under running water, from the ground. So it's not just, I just use it as an example because most of the time you see banche to be typical of those foods that are highly contaminated when it comes to, being bought from the market. So we have to wash every single food, plantain, whether it is onion, whether including onion, whether it is tomatoes, we have to do, yes, we have to wash it. And sometimes it will be proper to even wash with soap to even further reduce the microbial contamination.
You can even have salt or maybe vinegar.
Yes, you can put them in those solutions.
And especially our salads.
Our salads.
Carrots, our salads and
yes.
Those things.
And I think the third thing we should be doing is that our storage. Most of the products, sometimes we buy it and how it has been stored. When you are buying from the market, or whether you have bought it and you are keeping it in your home, depending on the type of food, it's supposed to be stored using the appropriate principles. If it's supposed to be stored in very cold, you have to make sure that when you are going to buy it from, for example, we talked about fish. When you are going to buy fish, make sure that that fish was bought just from the cold room. Or if you stored it in your room, your house too, make sure you picked it from the deep freezer. We have deep freezer, we have fridge. Fridge doesn't get items frozen. The deep freezer. So once you pick it from there, it means that at least we can be sure that microbial content is quite reduced. So once we do that, then we also identify the method that we are going to use in the preparation. For example, when you take meat, I told you earlier that the microbial content is high because of the blood substances. So what you do is that you have to be able to cook this food for the required duration. Other than that, we are going to, for example, it's supposed to be cooked for 30 minutes and you cooked it for 20 minutes. You know, the middle of the meat, it may be still reddish and some microbes may be hiding there. We have to choose the right method. There are some foods you cannot cook using different methods unless a particular method. You understand? So we choose that one as well. And again, the other thing we should be doing is our utensils, our articles for preparation of the food. Oftentimes, when we finish preparation of food, we leave it uncleaned overnight until we are going to use it to prepare another food again. When you do that, you are provided, conducive medium for the microbes to grow and multiply. So once you just do some rinsing, you are not safe. So I think that the items to eat, cleaning the items is also very important. The surfaces that we are also going to use in the preparation, let's say the chopping boards and all that, and the items we are also going to use to be doing the cutting, to be using for the stirring. All these items, we should clean them. Sometimes we engage in certain practices which make some of these things not too clean. We may think that uncleaned knife can be used to cut a food item, and once we cook it, we can be safe. But don't be risking that to that level. You understand? So once we're able to do all these things, we can be sure of food safety. And another issue I also want to mention is the detergents that we use in our homes. You see, in advanced countries, they have what we call kitchen inspectors. You will be in your home, they knock at your door. When they enter, they walk straight into your kitchen. And what they do is that they just take a swab of your sink. Sometimes they go even beneath it to take samples and all that. And once they go and they check to see that they test some serious microbes and all that, they will come red band, they will just lock your kitchen. Your own private kitchen, they will lock it for you. So it's important we check some of these things. How often do we clear our kitchen? Sometimes just close to the gutter, we are washing our kitchen utensils and all that. We are rather taking in more microbes and all that. So for the health of our family, we should do well as, good women, Muslim women in our home, to be engaging in some of these safe practices, so that at least we can provide a wholesome meal for the family.
At least for the health of the family.
Yes.
Okay. So it's Mamphec, and we have Mr. Amin in our studio here to help discuss food hygiene. We will thank our sponsors, Mr. B. Musa and also Markan Food, for supporting our programs, and also we are looking out for more sponsors for our programs. We have a lot to do, but due to sponsorship and all those things, we are not able to do a lot. So we are looking out for sponsorship from donors. You can contact any of our numbers, which will be put across for you to send your donations. So today it's been Mamphec. We would like to thank Mr. Amin for honoring our invitation for today's program. Mr. Amin, do you have anything else to say?
Yes.
Your family
yes, I want to say that we are what we eat. So it's very important that we take charge of the food that we consume. We should be concerned about the very, point that this food was being produced, where it undergone, the processes it undergone, and how it was distributed, how it was stored, and finally who even prepared it, and under what conditions was it prepared. It is only when we are concerned about some of these things that we can be sure that we have really filled our stomachs. Other than that, we are not eating. We are rather eating poison. So we should be concerned about what we are consuming into our bodies, because what we eat in there is going to determine how long we are going to live. And I believe everybody wants to live longer. So once we want to live longer, we have to engage in safe food practices.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Amin giving his closing remarks. Before we end the program, we will still say we are thanking Mr. B. Musa for helping our program or sponsoring our program so this far, and we are looking out for more sponsors from other people to help support our program. It's here for the Mamphec very can't see be a program no sponsors and B Musa funds. So B Musa funds I'll be nya omo edum ono so phone papa enye and na say hawa B Musa funds baby I'll be nya funds papa. It's been your host Husseina Ibrahim Adongo. So till we meet, inshallah, next week, we come your way again with another program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Mamphec hour, Husseina Ibrahim Adongo, Nemiga Bia, 3 p.m. GMT. Ya pomodin wasam nuhia, Mamphec hour, Husseina Ibrahim Adongo, Nemiga Bia, 3 p.m. GMT.
Mombo me jingle ne kakra.
Mam radio. Wallahi, Al Jannah to Firdaus is our limit, inshallah. Amen.